Hi, I'm Kremser for CreativePro, and in this video I'm going to show you a few of the new features and updates to artboards in Adobe Illustrator. One of the first things you'll notice is that we have this new display of the artboard name right on the canvas, which you can double click to go ahead and rename your artboards. If you're not a fan of this display and you'd like to turn it off, you can find that option in your Preferences menu under the Selection and Anchor Display tab. Down here at the bottom, you'll see the new Artboard Display section, and you can just go ahead and uncheck this box and click OK, and you'll see that removes those labels for you. To check out the next new feature, we'll need to be in Artboard Editing mode, which you can enter by clicking on the shortcut here in your Properties panel if you've got nothing selected in your document, or you can go ahead and select the Artboard tool from your toolbar here to enter that mode. Once we're in this mode, if we mouse over the artboard, you'll see the plus signs come up at the top, bottom, right, and left sides. If I go ahead and click one of these, it's just going to give me a duplicate of that artboard with the exact size that we've already got. And if you hold down Alt or Option while clicking one of these plus sign buttons, you'll get a copy of that artboard with the artwork included. Another new feature is a highlight on the active artboard so you can tell which artboard you have selected. Normally, if you don't have your artboard window open, it can be a little tricky to figure out which artboard is actually active, especially when there's no artwork on it. This is very hard to see on my screen at the moment because I do have my workspace set to a darker color, so I'm just going to adjust that so that we can see that with a lighter background. To do that, I'll go to Preferences using the shortcut Control or Command K, over here to the User Interface tab, and I'll just set this to a lighter user interface for a moment to show that highlight in its default state. Now when I'm clicking on the artboard, you can see a subtle black line around the active artboard, which highlights where I'm working. I do prefer working with the darker background, so I'll show you how you can customize the color and size of the artboard highlight. I'll go back into my Preferences menu, navigate to the Selection and Anchor Display. You'll find right under here the option to change the color and the stroke width for those new highlights. Probably the most exciting of the artboard updates this year has been the ability to add a color to your artboard. So when you're working with a graphic or a set of graphics that includes a white color, it can be often very hard to see what you're doing if you are on a white background. The fix for this has always been to just have a solid background color underneath like we have in this file on the background layer. However, you can now actually change the artboard color itself. For this, we'll need to be in Artboard Editing mode, so I'll go ahead and use the shortcut O to grab my artboard tool, and now we can see the shortcut here in the Properties panel to change this fill color. We can choose white, black, or transparent from the dropdown, or if we click Other or just double click the color swatch here, we can choose a color. Currently, you cannot pick from your swatches, but you can use the color picker here to grab a color from your artwork. So I'll just grab this blue color from our background and click OK. And now I have that color as part of the artboard instead of having to make a solid background square behind it. Notice that if I duplicate an artboard that has a color applied, it does not duplicate that color, so you will have to manually apply that background color to each artboard at the moment. This does mean, however, that you can have multiple colors, so I could have any color on any artboard, which can come in handy when you want to see something like a logo on a dark or a light background without having to make those shapes on a background layer, which can be a little tedious. There's a few new features in the artboard panel itself. For example, once we've duplicated a few artboards, the naming scheme here might get a little messy. What we can do now is batch rename artboards. I'll go ahead and click on my first artboard here, and then just holding down Shift, I'll click on my last artboard to highlight all of them. Next, I will open up the panel menu. And if we come over here to rename and click that, I can set a name for these artboards. I'll just call it Winter Icons. And if I go ahead and click OK, you'll see that Illustrator renames all of these artboards with the descriptive name I've added, as well as a number suffix, which matches the artboard number. One of the other new additions here in the artboard panel is the ability to lock artboards, which you can do in this column here. Now the graphic I'm working on is a stock image, and it's a bit messy with all of the items grouped onto one layer. So this can actually be a nice shortcut to lock artwork without having to know exactly where it appears in the Layers panel. If I click on this artboard with the gift box down here to activate it, I can see that it's artboard number 4. And if I go ahead and lock that in the artboard window, you can see it actually locks the corresponding artwork that belongs to that artboard in my Layers panel. This will also prevent you from accidentally moving an artboard that you want locked. So if I activate my artboard tool, I'm able to move any of the other artboards, but if I try to move number 4 here, it just starts drawing a new artboard. I'll go ahead and delete that and undo my moves. And if I click again to unlock artboard 4, you can see that it does unlock that artwork in the Layers panel as well. Finally, we have a few more options with the Artboard context menu. So if I select an artboard with my Artboard tool active and I right-click, you'll see some new options here. But one of the most useful is this new export shortcut that we have. And if I click that, it's going to bring up the Export for Screens dialog with the Artboard tab active. And you can see the artboard that I have currently selected in my document is already selected here as well, so I can go ahead and export that. One of the things I do want to note regarding the new background colors on artboards is that you can only export those with certain file formats. Right now I have JPEG chosen as my format, and you can see a checkbox up here where I can select or deselect include artboard fill, which will also change my preview on the left. However, if I change the format here to a PNG file, you can see that checkbox becomes inactive, and in our preview here you'll see the background color disappears. Currently, you can only include the artboard color in JPEG, PDF, or SVG files. Hopefully we'll get the option to include that in additional file formats in a future update. And that covers all of the big updates that we've had with artboards in the new 2026 version of Adobe Illustrator, and I'm looking forward to seeing further development of these new tools and options.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. And for thousands more how-to articles and tutorials, visit our website, creativepro.com, and become a member today. Thanks for learning with us.